place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we, when mad it's them. It's the same place, Murali in Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. Go tell a friend.
Welcome to Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by Sri Lanka's #1 journalist, Estelle, Vasudevan, and we have a very special guest, Lavanya, who I'll tell you about in a minute as well, who's joining us. If you just found us, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the follow, tell all your friends. We talk about Sri Lankan cricket at least once a week when none of the teams are playing. When we're playing, we'll react. We have a reaction show straight afterwards, which is where we do generally at the moment. It feels like a lot of therapy for Sri Lanka fans to talk about what's going right with this team, what's going wrong with the team, all that stuff. So kind of, if you're just discovering us, stick with us. Lavanya, thank you for joining us. You are a top sports journalist from India. You've been following the fortunes of, well, inadvertently, the Sri Lankan national side as well, because you've been in Colombo recently. I met you there. You spent a lot of time with Estelle in the press box in Colombo. So we're going to talk to you about that as well. You were also at the final, which at the time of recording was yesterday. I think that's probably the best place to start. What was it like being? I've never done it, or I'm going to say, hopefully not yet done it. What was it like being in the stadium at a Cricket World Cup final?
I'm sure the experience must be very, very different from being at a men's Cricket World Cup final and a women's Cricket World Cup final. Yesterday, for us, the main thing was to just try and gauge how much of the interest is actually genuine, right? How many people are actually coming there because they know the players, as opposed to, okay, India's made a final, so we'll just turn up there and see what happens. Because a lot of people, we realized, were getting tickets just because they wanted to be there for that Instagrammable moment. There's an Indian team that's winning on home soil. Everyone wants that reel. Everybody wants the photo. Everyone wants to be part of that. No FOMO, right, in this age of social media. So there was a lot of those kind of people as well. So for the reporters that were in the press box, a lot of us had to turn up, first of all, at like 9 and 10 a.m. in the morning, because as opposed to all the empty press boxes we've had multiple times in the tournament, this one was packed, and there were people sort of taking away our seats and putting their bags there. And also I had to leave threatening messages near my laptop and keep it there so no one touches my bag. And then I had to go out and check what kind of people are actually turning up for the game. And we saw so many kids. All of the people that we saw outside the stadium were people who weren't able to find tickets. They were struggling to get passes because, the ticket fiasco was something completely different. We can discuss that if you guys have time. But there was barely any passes, and they were just standing there outside a gate which had a huge sold out sign, and they were begging the cops, give us something. If there's a ticket lying around somewhere, it's my kid's birthday, my kid's this, my kid's that. So a lot of parents were trying to just weasel their way in. But oh God, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. Given that it was raining 2 hours before the game actually began, and it was heavy rain, okay? There was no forecast of rain at all. It was like being in Colombo again, where you're just sitting and just watching the sky for about 2.5 hours, no? That was literally what we were doing from about maybe 1 to about 4 o'clock in the evening. But despite that, people turned up. They were sitting in the stands. The stands were packed. It was about 40,000 people there for the final, and predominantly in blue shirts. I think happened to meet the only two actual South Africans in South African shirts. Somewhere they were waiting outside the gate, and I happened to see them. And again, there they were surrounded by blue shirt people. And they were like, we're having fun. It's okay. It's not sinking in yet. No one said anything mean to us yet. And they were standing there and making friends. But then on broadcast, I think ICC caught them during the game, and there were people just barging into them saying, India, India. And the poor guy's just smiling helplessly because there's nothing else he can do. So yeah, it was really chaotic. It was chaotic in a good way. We didn't have any stampedes or anything of that sort, but it was chaotic. A lot of people had turned up. Their kids had turned up. People who know the players had turned up. So there were huge banners and flexes and charts. It was absolutely brilliant. For the first half of the match, noise. Okay, it's just constant noise. They were screaming for everything, singing for everything. And then the second half, you have Laura Wolvath sort of doing her own thing, where she's like, okay, I'm going to like tap on your nerves for as long as I can and see where I can take this. And then it was just pin drop silence. You could hear things fall in random stands. That was how quiet it was until, of course, they sort of got her out specifically. It wasn't even the other
Mm,
dismissals. The loudest cheer
mm.
came for her wicket, and people stood up and gave her an ovation as well. So yeah, DY Patil is sort of the home of women's cricket in India. I can say that quite safely because that's what the Indian captain said as well. Apparently, they had a WhatsApp group. They have, of course, they have a WhatsApp group for the team. And when they found out that the final was moving to DY Patil, they were like, okay, this is our home turf. We can actually get it done here. This is like our people who come here know us. We know them. They're gonna, prep us about. That's exactly what happened. Those 40,000 people carrying those 11 women on the field there.
Wow. I love that idea that they're discussing on this show we're on for quite a while on the road to the World Cup. The first stop was the Women's World Cup. Now we're on the road to the kind of Men's World Cup. Being an ICC event in India, we don't know where the final will be at this point. We assume Ahmedabad, but we've been talking about the road to Ahmedabad for the men for quite a while here, and I like it that that was a key part of the India women's side's preparation for it, was this idea of going home. That kind of brings chills to me. Estelle, you're somebody who's followed women's cricket for a long time. Don't necessarily support India or South Africa. What's it like for you watching the reaction that people are having, right? Because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. There weren't very big crowds turning up to women's games, and now it's absolutely massive.
Yeah, it is. And I think it goes to show that there is an interest. It's about tapping into it, right? I think even when we look at what happened in Sri Lanka and the crowds in Colombo, yes, the weather was a massive factor. I think there would have been bigger crowds if it didn't rain. But I think Lavanya can kind of attest to like how kind of shoddy the plans were, right? Were there enough promotions? You know, what was done to bring the crowds in? And we've seen different venues having different crowds, but yeah, just to see that kind of crowd turn up for India, right? I'm sure the atmosphere would have been incredible over there. And I think what was also good is there is a slight difference in the fans that turn up to men's and women's games, in that you do get the feeling that in the women's game there's a lot more appreciation for the opposition. And I think we saw that when it came to Woolward, didn't we? Like even Marizan Cap, those kind of players, they do get that appreciation from the crowd, and that's really nice to see. I don't know if it would have happened if it was Alyssa Healy, but like you kind of see that in the women's game, where you do have a lot more of that kind of that's the elusive spirit that we like to talk about. I think it's very much more visible in the women's game at the moment. I think it could be a massive moment, isn't it? Like people have been talking about what would happen if India actually, crossed that mark. They haven't won a world title yet. This is the time to do it, and doing it at home, what it could do for the global game. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm sure, already you're kind of seeing little things changing. And I think it's also, it's been building over the last few years. I can tell you, we've spoken about, the Asia Cup for Sri Lanka last year, right? For me, I am measuring these things with my sister, right? My sister used to like cricket my older sister used to love cricket when she was a kid. And then she got sick of it. Never watches. If cricket is on TV, she'll just go to her room, whatever, right? Sri Lanka won the Asia Cup last year, and suddenly now she's interested in cricket. And the funniest thing is, I was on holiday during the two semi-finals, but I watched them. I turn up home the day after the second semi-final. I check my Instagram, and there are 4 stories on her Instagram of the Indian team, of Jemima, of Harmanpreet, and telling me she wants India to win because she loves Harmanpreet and she relates to her as an older sister and that energy. And so I think that's what women's cricket is doing, is that it's bringing a lot more new fans into the game, right? Who are not necessarily big cricket fans or haven't been big cricket fans, but people are finding things to relate with when it comes to the women's players, because they are a lot closer to the fans than the men's teams are, right?
Yeah, I also, as somebody watches, I've, I've now watched quite a lot of women's sport in different sports as well. The one, for me, the one big difference when you're watching it is actually the women, and I think I talk about this almost too much on when we talk about the Sri Lanka women's team, is they're much more orthodox in their style of play. So, like, when you watch women's cricketers, they really play much more to the book, like in the way when they're bowling or when they're batting, than a lot of the men do. And so I kind of feel, if you're a purist, then actually women's cricket might be more for you than you necessarily realise. And you might, if you're upset by the way T20 cricket's gone and Sky muscling the ball all over the park or whatever, then maybe if you haven't watched too much women's cricket, get yourself into that, because that is very much where you're going to see it. It's the same in women's rugby as well, and in women's football, they're much more. I think, in my opinion, I think it's probably because they pay more attention to their coaches when they're younger. But that's just my opinion. Maybe there's something else going on there. Lavanya, you're in India. You're India won. What do you think this means for women's cricket in India going forward?
Funnily enough, we've been discussing this days on end. Okay, I kind of feel like the revolutionary part of what it was supposed to mean has already happened. The fact that after the pandemic, when there was a lot of clamor for people to really pay attention to the women's game, right? Because when people saw that when both the ecosystems were sort of making their way back from COVID, it was a little lopsided towards the men initially. And so there was a lot of calls for, okay, you know what, it's time we really start fixing the way we do women's cricket here. So you need to have better fixtures. You need your calendar to be a little better organized. Have a stable coaching setup, first of all, not change coaches every other year whenever someone has a fight with them, or you pick toxic people to begin with. And then you have money and like your equal pay, and equal pay also is another conversation, just match parity, match fee parity, right? Things like this people started talking about. And then at that point they were like, for the amount of talent we have, why do we not have a women's IPL? That became the huge thing after about 2022. And then the naysayers, and there are several of us even in our fraternity, right, even journalists, several of them didn't believe that the Indian women's ecosystem deserved, and I use the air bunnies because what do you deserve? I don't understand. Why does this come up to you needing to show stripes to then earn something like that, which is
Earn
supposed to
it.
help you develop a system, right? And the gains of the WPL. So WPL is that watershed moment, if you ask me, because that sort of opened up a lot of opportunities for multiple people. We seem to think that success for like for a cricketer is to go and win a World Cup. When you have a country with 1.4 billion people, not all of them are going to make that team. Your system still needs to work even if that doesn't happen. That's what the WPL has done. So it's given someone a pathway where, okay, I might not make the national setup, but I can still keep cricket as my career. I don't have to do something else and just go play on the weekends. I can earn from it. And I don't have to depend on, say, a domestic team or a domestic employer, like one of the traditional employers, like the railways or things like that. I don't have to depend on them to really keep this as my profession. So that's already happened. That happened in 22. It built on 23, built on in 24, sort of came full circle in 25. What needs to happen from here, from this World Cup, right? The fact that the Indian women have now built on all of that, built on that popularity, built on the fact that they have a lucrative league. What they need to do from here is to actually go, like the fans and the administration now needs to band together and say, okay, you all have done what you need to do. Now it's time for us to do our bare minimum. And I say bare minimum because Estelle, you just spoke about how matches were not promoted adequately. That happens in India. Where are we promoting our bilaterals when things happen here? When you hold them in any tier 2 places, even for the World Cup, there was barely any promotion anywhere. In Guwahati, the only boards I saw for the World Cup were around the peripheries of the stadium. It was great. Any road leading to the stadium had boards. But what about everywhere else? Nothing at the airport, nothing at any of the major sites. In Colombo, nothing anywhere. This is not what you expect, right? You wouldn't do that for the men. So if you're gonna gauge how you should or shouldn't give your time to to the women's game based on what happens with the men, how explosive it is, how whatever it is, do the same thing in terms of how much effort you put into it as well. So I hope that mindset changes. That's what's required, honestly. The money is there, the investors are there, the star power is there. These are girls who everybody knows now. You have advertisers sort of going to these people. All of that's already happening. So, if anything, I would want a little more responsibility from administrators, have better domestic contracts, have pathways for people to have families and come back into the sport, have better fitness systems. These are all basics, right? These are like your building blocks. It's not like math at class 12 level. You need to go back to like pre-KG, KG, and sort of get those things set in place properly. So that's what I hope happens. If India does it, it will spur on people like Sri Lanka, hopefully. Hopefully that ripple effect goes to places like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. Look at Bangladesh. For all their problems, look at what that team put up in the first maybe 4 or 5 games of the tournament. All of that happened despite a system that is built to not let them play, where they don't have opportunities, they don't have pathways. There's the cultural part there as well, where women aren't really, it's not a favorable thing to go out in, shorts or tight pants and go and play with boys and things like that. So it's a cultural shift that needs to happen in an Asian World Cup. The good thing about an Asian team, even South Africa, right? If South Africa had won, it would have helped change how people look at women there as champions. A
Yeah.
lot of the South Africans told us if the women's team wins, then the men's team will, have that FOMO that, okay, they've done it. We also need to do it now. A lot of those things sort of tend to happen. So I want the cultural shift to happen. All of the money and everything will come. This is what we need.
You won't know this, but me and Estelle have been talking about the women's cricket on this show and its predecessor for a number of years. And for the first couple of years, one of the questions I'd always ask Estelle every time a Sri Lanka women's squad came out would be where have these players come from? Where do these women come from? Where have they found these girls to play cricket? What is the pathway? It's SLC is almost it's not a very transparent organisation. A lot of the stuff they do we don't see. The impression I get from the little I follow kind of Indian cricket is that definitely with the men's side, there is very clear paths from, at this point, actually almost all over the country, even parts of East India, which you've never known cricketers to come from, to be able to get into the national side if they have the talent to get there. Is that the same for the women's side? And a sub question I've got for it is, with the Sri Lanka team, in general, it tends to split with the men's side coming from the more urban areas and the women's side coming from the more rural areas. Do you see that split in Indian cricket as well?
Okay, so to answer your first question, we do have pathways. At the moment, the good thing for India is the domestic setup has been fairly good. How well it's attended to is another conversation mark. Whether you have streaming, what kind of pitches you get, how the selections go there. The problem there is how selections happen, right? People who have favor sometimes get into a team. All of that used to happen for a very long period of time. You had 1 or 2 teams that were sort of dominating the national scene, and then those players would largely go and populate the national side. That's not how it is right now. That trend has sort of started easing away. It's a lot more professional. So you have to give credit where it's due. The problem with the domestic setup is you will have tournaments like Senior Women's T20 Trophy, Senior Women's T20 Challenger, Senior Women's T20 East Zone something. There'll be like a zonal thing. I know this is such a petty thing to have a problem with, but why can't you just name these tournaments again, like after somebody, or give it like a good name, right? These are branding things. If you look at Indian domestic cricket, like for the men, there's Ranji Trophy. Nobody's calling it Senior Men's Red Ball Tournament. Right? Nobody's calling it that. That's what it is. That is what it is. It's the Elite Division Red Ball Tournament. No one's calling it that. You have Vinu Mankad, you have Syed Mushtaq Ali, you have all of these tournaments named after some stalwart at some point. And in our country, there's no dearth of trailblazers. There are women who've like gone around going ahead and pissing off a lot of the men in their time and doing things that no one thought was possible. That you've got some 16 names, I think, that you can name tournaments after, and that's not happening. There's no recall value for these things. All of these tournaments happen behind closed doors. No one knows they're happening. No one knows these domestic games are going on. And your main players like your Harman Smriti, they very rarely come down, even if they do, right, for these kind of tournaments. Because usually now the bilaterals itself are so stacked up in a year, and then you want to like sort of take your time to decompress, or you go over to the Center of Excellence and do your work there. So when you have like your fledgling players coming through, or some of these, like maybe your Shafalis and all going down and playing. She's been playing domestic cricket for better part of a year. Who's going and watching these games? I was in Chennai. We had a match where their one day final happened. The local one day final happened at the MH Chidambaram Stadium, which is like the main stadium in Chepauk. Not a soul, Estelle. I could hear the crows across the stand. And Shafali is just hitting sixes. And mind you, Chennai is not a small venue. It's not small at all. And she was just like gulping it for fun. And I'm just like, if anybody knew that this girl is sitting here and doing this, imagine if people knew, they could come, they could actually see them, figure out what their games are before they go to like an elite stage and things happen there. So that is the problem. That is an issue with the domestic setup here. The other thing, what was your other question? Sorry.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yes,
Is that why
yes.
is the reason why they didn't pick Shafali, because no one was actually watching
The
what she
scouts were
was
there, to
doing
be
in the
fair.
domestic
The,
setup?
the selectors are there. It's all, you have a lot of administrators sitting around everywhere. There is never a dearth of that. But there's again the thing of, it's too many people and too few slots, right? So it also depends upon how you sort of talk to selectors,
What you
what you're doing to make your case, which is, I'm assuming, the case everywhere. I can't call that an Indian problem per se. But yeah, there is a lot of that. I would just want, because you guys were talking about what would the impact be, right? It's not always about going and sitting at a World Cup final and what, like 40,000 people chanting there. Where are you when they're grinding it out in domestic? And when they're in the domestic level, it's when they're coming back hurting from a non-selection or coming out of an injury, or it's usually something like that going on with them at the time. You need to be supporting them there. Imagine somebody who grows up with that kind of noise. They're not going to be phased at all when you go for a big final. Shafali took 3 years to have the composure she had in that final yesterday. What you remember how starkly different the 2022 final was? She was so baby-faced then. She had done so well in that T20 World Cup, and then it just didn't work for her in that final. If she had that atmosphere of 80,000 people screaming at her, and she's, you know how she is, right? She's such a I will take you head on kind of person. She's from Haryana. The women there tend to be very headstrong. A lot of our country's Olympic medal winning wrestlers are from there. So that is the kind of culture you have. Expose your girls to things like this rather than putting them up in places where no one will visit, or in some random ground somewhere where the pitches are not good enough and things like that. So that's an issue, I suppose. What was your second question?
I was talking about what the kind of background is of the girls in terms of
Oh,
in
yes.
Sri Lanka. They come
Yes.
from more rural.
So great World Cup to discuss this, because absolutely great World Cup to discuss this, because we've had a lot of tier 2 and rural background players sort of featuring in this World Cup. Even
What do you mean by
someone
tier
like-
2?
By tier 2, I mean, it's not generally. So if you look at the women's team now, you have maybe Jemima and Radha from Mumbai. Smriti is from Sangli. That's a town. It's not an urban center. Like, I mean, it is an urban center now. Everything is an urban center, but it's like a town, right? It's a tier 2 city.
Yeah.
You have Kranti Gaud, who comes from some village in Madhya Pradesh, which has like a tribal area around it. You have Sri
Isn't she the
Chalini, who comes-
first or only Madhya Pradesh player?
Yes. Technically, no. Sandhya Agarwal. You have a lot of Madhya Pradesh players who've played, but in this setup, yes, she is. And you have Sri Charni, who's coming from Andhra Pradesh. You have Arundhati, who's coming from Hyderabad. Hyderabad main city, yes, but she's also gone the whole circuit to sort of figure out playing in smaller teams before coming in. Harmanpreet is not from like a major place. She also comes from a small village in Punjab. You have Jemima's the only true blue Bandra Bombay girl who brings her guitar and her singing and her reels and all of that. But everyone else, a lot of these girls are from very, very humble backgrounds. Amanjot is from a very humble background. Her father's a carpenter. He sort of carved out her first cricket bat and had a lot of financial difficulties. Yeah. So these are incredible stories. These girls come from a lot of the most hardest of hard sort of backgrounds, right? This was very interesting because when we were in UAE for the T20 World Cup last year, I was talking to a couple of the UAE guys, like the board over there, to sort of the Emirates Cricket Board, to figure out what kind of expats do you get here? Why is it that, okay, UAE is doing well, they have a good pathway and all that, but they're not sort of pushing forward, right? Nothing's, at that point, at least nothing was majorly happening, especially with the men. Somebody there at the ICC Academy told me, when you go to India or when you have all of these people, if they were back in their home countries, there would be a struggle associated with how they play cricket. Like, you would have to earn your rights to go to a ground, you would have to earn your bat, or you'd have to earn your kit. the issue with affluent places is there is no struggle involved at all. So you're not earning anything by playing cricket. That was very interesting to me. I'm like, what is this? Do you have to struggle, or do you have to have like a poverty porn story for you to do well? In a game like this, where it's just a bat, you take a bat, you hit a ball, hopefully somebody doesn't catch you or someone doesn't sort of hit off your stumps. It shouldn't have anything to do with your social background, right? But apparently your motivations and your why. Sophie Devine spoke about this, right? Your why for cricket and why you're doing what you're doing. When it's that strong, when you have so many people to prove wrong, or when you have so many challenges to cross, I think that sort of pushes you further. And this Indian team is a perfect example for that. Most of them are from tier 2 cities. It's incredible how they've come out and done what they've done.
I know he's a bloke, but you know just well how he ran away and got a trade by himself. And I was like, I can't remember if I mentioned this story earlier before. When I was a kid, my mum's Indian, and there was a Bollywood film that she used to make us watch, or an Indian film, I don't know if it was Bollywood, where basically this kid ends up on the wrong train and gets like his parents basically lose the child for like 35 years. I think that was a reoccurring theme in Indian film for a long time.
Yes.
And
a lot of lost kids, lost brothers, lost sisters.
And I was like, that like is the ultimate nightmare for any Indian child that you don't want to happen. But actually, it turns out if you do get lost on the train, you might end up playing for India, right? Because maybe it's the best thing. Lavanya, the real reason Estelle and me invited you onto the show was obviously to celebrate India's win, and that's great for everyone who supports Team India. But was also to ask you about your experiences in Colombo, how you felt about Sri Lanka afterwards, and what will you be rushing back to there's a number of ICC tournaments coming up, but in between that, you're always welcome on a holiday.
Yeah, so I am going to be coming back. I was there for about 13 days. I sort of fell in love with the place. And I know I only saw Colombo, which everybody keeps telling me, this is not Sri Lanka. You need to go. Every driver was like very condescendingly telling me what you're seeing in Colombo. You need to take a car and go down to Gaul and go here and go there. And I'm like, okay, please pay me. I need to do work. I can't really keep going around in a car everywhere. But oh my God, Sri Lanka was an experience, Mark. It was such an experience. It's really nice. So the thing is, and when we come in from Tamil Nadu, right? Like I work in Tamil Nadu, my office is here. We've had, what our relationship is with Sri Lanka. It's always a little tense in a lot of senses. So I know a lot of people who've been to Sri Lanka here have been there when things were a little bad socially, when there were conflicts there, and when Tamil people were not really looked at with a lot of trust. Let's just put it that way, especially people coming in from Chennai or from Tamil Nadu and things like that. So all of them would be like, don't go there and talk in Tamil. Don't go and say anything stupid. Don't go and talk about anything that might be bodily controversial. So I was like, okay. When I came in, there was nothing of the sort. So there's a lot of conceptions about how we still look. And I'm not generalizing with we, but a lot of people, at least I spoke to, look at Sri Lanka, comes from the days of the past. So when I came in to really see a very different reality being played out here, given that people have want to move forward from this whole sectarian divide you have in terms of ethnicity and things like that, because there are other problems, right? There is a whole other economic issue that you need to deal with, which is equally screwing both sides of the spectrum. So a lot of that was very, very, very interesting to understand. I was talking to every random tuk driver. I sat and ate Andrew's head to sort of explain just what is the politics like now, what is the economy like now. My laptop stopped working one day before the India-Pakistan game, and Andrew, who works for Cricinfo, sort of dropped me to some laptop service guy who invariably has Indian ancestry from Bangalore. And all of these guys were also telling me about just how, right now, I'm sure there's like a lingering after effect of it somewhere, but that's not the priority now. We have so many bigger problems going on that's sort of hitting the country. So just understanding those paradoxes was absolutely brilliant.
They're too busy to be racist. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're too busy to be racist. That's right.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of comparison. So it turns out a lot of average Sri Lankans know a lot about what's happening in India and how the political system is here and just where our society is going in terms of majoritarianism or in terms of how religion is viewed here. So a lot of people were like, oh, things are very difficult in India right now. A lot of people say that you can't openly do this, openly do that and all that. And I'm like, okay, this is a very refreshing Uno reverse that's happening, because I came here trying to understand what your issues were of the past and you all are telling me what my issues are in my country. But I spent a lot of time like running around in bookstores and getting things of Sri Lankan history and what people who live outside Sri Lanka have sort of gone back and discovered their own country with its sort of different histories and things like that, right? So that part was absolutely brilliant. What I did not like, and first from a tourist perspective, was the Buddhist temples. And I'm saying this only because they've become like tourist attractions, right? So you have selfie points everywhere, and the temples are beautiful. You have so much of history. You have so many of these old carvings and things like that that are put there. Things are there for like thousands of years or 500 years or something from some dynasty somewhere in India, something from Thailand. There is no information there for the average English speaking tourist. Everything is either in Sinhalese, which is not a problem, but have a translation somewhere or have something done. And when we went, we found a bunch of Indian tourists who had come, and there were small frame pictures of Narendra Modi, our prime minister, which was like kept in certain places. And they were taking selfies off that frame. I'm like, you are from my country. The man is living. You can go there and figure it out there. If you're here, why wouldn't you look at, like that roof with the 1,000 Buddhas on it? Or, funnily enough, in a Buddhist temple, there is a Rolls Royce exhibit at the back. Like there's a luxury cars exhibit at the back. Or all of this really astounded me. I spent one entire hour there trying to understand what's going on here. This is the Gangaramaya temple, right? I was trying to make sense of how do people pray here? You have too many things going on in the same place. Absolute outsider perspective, right? There were people very like sincerely praying on one side, and then there were tourists looking at like Rolls Royce and old time Mercedes, something from the 80s, and there were like these vintage Rolex watches and all in one exhibit somewhere. And then somewhere else, you have all of this stuff where there's Chinese crockery and dolls and stuff like that in another exhibit. So that paradox just broke my brain for a day, okay, to be very honest. So that there was that. Estelle and I went to the Sri Lanka Cricket Museum, and I want her to tell you about this. But what I will tell you is, I was so excited to go see the Asia Cup trophy because I tried so hard to be in Sri Lanka for it, and I couldn't be there. And my only source of sort of getting things done on ground was Estelle. I was sending her questions, please ask this, please ask that, ask Chamari what she thinks of this, ask this person what she thinks of that. And I was so excited to see that trophy, to sort of take a picture and put it in our magazine for where I work. I work for Sports Star. So I wanted that in the magazine to say, okay, these girls have done this. It's not a country that doesn't have achievements in women's cricket. And the trophy was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. I was just like, why would you do that? The World Cup is coming. All it takes is just put one stand or a stool or something like that. Put like a placard there that said they won the Asia Cup. And then do whatever permanent thing you need to do later, right? All of that is still fine. We were welcomed by the overwhelming fragrant scent of piss at the Sri Lankan Cricket Museum. That is not what you want to see okay, I don't know if SLC knew that people were not going to turn up for these games, so no one's going to bother coming to the museum, which is a whole other dystopian kind of thinking on its own. But
you're way overthinking that. You're giving them way too much credit if they would have thought that far. Like, yeah.
Why would you do that? It was just so disappointing. I came there, I wanted to see some picture of Shashikala at the very least, right? Because she's sort of the first Sri Lankan player I knew about, to be very honest with you. It's through her that I sort of started looking at what the Sri Lankan team was doing and what they were sort of building with that squad. And then Chamari broke into the scene, and then all hell broke loose in terms of following that side and how important they became. Not just like a plaque somewhere on the side, when they had that list of captains on a wall somewhere. No photograph. Nothing. Where is the picture from that Asia Cup triumph? That Kavisha sort of cheering that way when the winning runs were scored. That picture is like tattooed in my brain. Why is it not there on the walls of SLC Museum? It was just so many things, man. It's still something I haven't written about, which I will. I took pictures, like I was ferociously taking pictures to say, okay, I'm going to like put this up somewhere. Unfortunately, you can't capture piss on a photograph. Or that would have been something people should have experienced, just how
it's only captured here.
Yeah, it's only captured here. Shit.
Estelle, what were you thinking when you were in this museum? You've got a friend and colleague from abroad has come over. She's super excited to go to the museum, and it lets you down. It's just the worst, isn't it?
It was your first time too, wasn't it, Estelle?
Yeah, it was my first time as well. And I mean, there was no settling in. The moment we opened the door, the smell just...
Yeah. It gave you a nice warm hug.
Oh.
You know what? It did feel warm, right?
Oh, dear. Oh. Oh, dear.
Oh, my God.
But like the sad thing was like, I know like the the 96 World Cup, all of that, it's displayed nicely. It's just, it feels like there's not much effort being put into actually keeping things, like if you're maintaining it, get the trophies in, get the stands in. You can't say I have room only for 5 trophies, right? Like when you have, like when it's a museum, you have to find a place to put things up, because there were some interesting things, like really old, first series win, first win against some countries, lots of interesting things in there, but it just didn't feel like it was ready for people to come and visit,
Yeah.
right? It didn't feel like it was ready for people to come and visit, which was sad. And like you said, like obviously bringing someone over, and it is a World Cup, right? You're hosting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we
So
didn't go
I
like,
mean,
we didn't go 2, 3 days before it started or anything. We went well into the
yeah.
tournament,
Hmm.
like towards when I was going to
Yeah,
leave. And
leave,
I'm like,
yeah.
what's happening?
But
And
also,
see, I think those are the things I mean when I say where is the promotion, right?
Yeah.
Because that is something you can promote. Like even if you're not coming to watch the games, look, there are these kinds of things. You can come to the SLC museum, have a look at all the trophies, the history of these teams, all of that, right? And I don't think even the women's, like the captains, was it even complete the list? I don't think
It
it
stopped
went
at Chamari.
beyond.
So it stopped at
No,
Chamari.
I mean the
Oh,
back.
beyond. Oh, yeah, yeah. You said, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't that complete. Yes.
So.
That's, we
um,
didn't see Vanessa's name or anything there, right?
Mm,
it's a real shame because I mean it could be, firstly they do promote it, like you see it advertised in like magazines and stuff like that in and around Colombo as a thing to do for if you're a tourist there.
Yep.
When people I know message me on all the time, and people I don't know just message cold message me, and that's fine. Just going, I'm going to Sri Lanka. What can I do that's cricket wise? And I'm like, well, in Colombo, you can kind of go visit the stadiums. I don't know what you're going to see when you get there, but they're Ketarab is a fairly historic place now. It's where Murali got X amount of wickets. Really, the best thing if you're a cricket fan to do in Sri Lanka is probably to go to Gaul, because it's
mm.
like it's everything you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
But the having a cricket museum and other things, attractions like it, could potentially be quite a good thing for Colombo to have. But if you're not going to look after it, maybe we don't deserve nice things.
God.
Maybe when we win the trophy in February or in June, because there's a T20.
There won't be room to keep it.
Yeah, just give it to whoever the organisers are. Like, can you look after this for us? But it's a real shame to be the Asia Cup thing, right? Because I thought it was such a fantastic moment for
Exactly.
not just the players play, but for all Sri Lanka cricket fans. I think for the people in the area, because it happened in Dambula, where let's be brutally honest, not a huge amount has happened for since Sigiriya got decommissioned, and it was I think it's probably the fourth, arguably the third biggest thing Sri Lankan cricket has ever done. There's 2 World Cups, and then there's that, and that should have been a moment to build on. Obviously, getting into the kind of cricket side of it, since that moment, the women's team hasn't, I would actually say is more than anything been mismanaged, right? And hopefully we don't look back at that moment in 10 years' time as the high watermark of
Yeah.
cricket, and hopefully they
Because
are.
we've had one of those moments before, right? Like everybody thought 2013 when Sri Lanka beat England and India in that World Cup in India, that was going to be the time. I remember watching an interview with Ishani Lokasuri, if I'm not mistaken. And she was talking about how people had been saying, like, okay, in 2017, you guys are going to be real contenders for this. Like, you could challenge for the trophy. And it never left the ground from there, right? Like from 2013. So you don't want this to happen. And like when you compare it with the men, right? You think about it, no matter, like, the Sri Lankan men's team has not been doing well either. You don't see resources lessening, right? Or fixtures lessening. You're giving them as many opportunities to, get back to where you want them to be. So that part of the support has to come, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't say, oh, it's like what Lavanya was speaking to us about. Was it off air or on air? I'm not sure, because we had a very long conversation off air as well about how like deserving things, right? About
Yeah.
earning, like, and you often see that in the women's game is that like you want players to earn equal pay. You want them to earn a IPL esque league, whereas that should not be the case. If you want to, like, everybody knows this is about the money, right? At the end of the day, it is about the money. If you want to make that money, you have to put in the work and invest. You're not. It's not going to appear out of nowhere, right? Like, you have to do the work to create that interest. And like, if you look at what happened at the Asia Cup, there is interest. It's about building on that. Sure, there it's very much, I think 70% fair weather fans who will be behind you when you're winning and probably not watch if you're losing. But the way you can't just expect it to organically, just go, because people have lots of stuff to do now. It's not like in the 80s where you'd see a cricket match every couple of years, or you know people have things to do. They're not going to give you their attention unless you work for it, right?
I know. We talked about this when I saw both of you in the stands in Colombo, and it's a regular theme on Murali End is that Sri Lanka cricket is where it's at despite its shoddy administration, right? And I think one of the things that is evident with when you compare the men's and women's setups is that the men are kind of almost guaranteed. The men could lose every test match for the next 10 years and they would still get test matches, right?
Yeah.
Teams would still turn up and they'd still be invited to play test matches. They might end up in a situation where they only get one test against England and Australia, but they'd still get test matches. I don't think Sri Lanka women will ever play a test match ever again. That's not something.
But also,
yeah,
that means we have 100% win record.
yeah, best team
Jesus.
ever. But
any other team who has that? No.
No. I think though.
I like how you think, Estelle. You're in the wrong profession, life coach.
Data analyst. The problem for the women's side is that I don't think at this point Sri Lankan cricket is guaranteed to play series against England, against Australia, against South Africa, against New Zealand, I kind of think maybe they will eventually get fixtures, or will inevitably get fixtures against India because the relationship between the two teams is so good. But they need exposure at this point to as many other different cricket teams as possible. And SLC need to work to be in that position where they can guarantee that. I also think the other thing is women's cricket is developing in a way that's totally different to the way the men's game has developed, right? You can already see Ireland's women's team is better than Ireland's better, as in the players are more highly rated than the men's side. Irish men's cricket isn't looking good in the next 10 years. The women's side is full of real good youngsters who could be around in 10, 15 years' time, probably come to the peak of their powers. I'd say the path it's going on, Ireland are going to be a better women's cricket team than Sri Lanka in not too distant a future, because they're actually working to try and nurture their structure and nurture their setup. You can see other sides, places like Thailand, that their men's side don't do anything, but they're kind of in and around the periphery of women's cricket. It wouldn't take that much for them to actually get to kind of Sri Lanka's level. They're basically one Chamari away, one kind of freak athlete away appearing for them to push them up a level. When Chamari retires, Sri Lanka have a whole new problem as well. The fixtures they're already not getting, are they going to get them? Go, yeah, but we've got Kamish and Archer. They're two players that can be great, but New Zealand cricket aren't looking at Sri Lanka thinking, if we get them over for a 3-match series, will we sell any tickets? At this point, they need to invest at the bottom of the funnel to be able to eat the cake at the top, and that's what worries me.
Absolutely. I was worried about this Chamari thing too. You remember there was this time when they didn't make the 2022 World Cup, she was posting these really heartbreaking things on Facebook. And I'm just like, can somebody please send her a psychologist and ensure she doesn't quit or doesn't spiral. Because that's the thing. She was like the most recognizable face here, no? After Shashikala went away, when you watch, yes, you do know your Udeshikas and your Kavishas and your Harshitas and your Anushkas and Inoka. They've been around, yes. You don't have a personality like that. She's really the fact that you take her to franchisee cricket and there's this random Sri Lankan girl that people are trusting with bat and ball, and she comes and does the stuff that she goes about doing. Like Mark, you said this, right? Chamari, like many other Sri Lankan things, is like a miracle worker. You said something to that effect when we were standing there.
Yeah.
If a miracle has to happen, Chamari needs to be part of it. And that's been the case for most of the teams that she sort of represents, which is why it used to really piss me off when she wouldn't get opportunities in the WPL. Like they take her and then not play her. UP Warriors had this thing, right, where they'd keep her in the squad and give Talia McGrath games. And I'm just like, you have a player who can bat. You can put her anywhere. She'll blindfold her and she can bat. And she'll give you wickets also. Why can't you just play her? And we used to think about so many things. What could it be? Why are they not picking her? Is she saying something? Is there some bias? For all you know, we didn't know what it was, right? We couldn't pick a logical reason why somebody like that wouldn't make it there. You have a talent like that, and then when she fades off, what happens? It's the same thing with Sophie. A lot of, I know they have like Milika, and they've got a lot of really interesting cricketers, but who has that personality, man? Who she's so okay to come there and make jokes on herself and talk so candidly about her diabetes and her mental health and the fact that there was a time when she just didn't want to do cricket. She's like, I'm taking a break, can't really do anything about that, and she made that okay for so many people. Chamari is that person here, no, who comes and says, like, remember, we were talking about this, right? Sri Lankans usually say a lot more in Sinhala than they do in English. You remember how Chamari came and said, this is our job. We are supposed to know how to do our job. There are no excuses for turning up at a World Cup and saying, I don't know how to field, I don't know how to bowl, I don't know how to do death overs. None of that. We didn't get that quote in English. So for a long time, I was just like, what is she saying? Maybe she's talking about team balance and stuff like that. And then the transcript comes about in ICC and she's given like this huge earful to her team without them being there. And you're just like, damn, who's the next person in that line, right? And I was talking to Estelle about that. I keep nagging her about like, who's this? I had like 50 questions for her, I think, every day when I used to meet her. And she used to be like, Kavisha's potentially that person, because that's sort of what people have seen of her, right? From when she was like 14, 15. She could be that person. But again, she's not somebody who speaks a lot in English, not somebody who gets a lot of media outside of, I'm sure, what she's doing in Sri Lanka, not someone who's given that exposure. When does the world get to see her? When does the world get to meet that side of her? You need to market these people accordingly also, which is, I think, one thing that the BCCI has done well now. You have somebody dedicatedly tailing the team. Yep. Earlier, it used to be just to do like press conferences and stuff like that. Now, there is that bare minimum video that's done from bilaterals wherever they go. There are those BTS things that the men's team used to get for the longest time, which is done quite well now. There's a good team of videographers and storytellers with the BCCI. Where is that for Sri Lankan cricket? Look at their stories. Look at where these girls are coming from. I'm going to say this again, Estelle, if you don't write that book, I will come to Sri Lanka and kill you. You have every reason. You have like so many stories.
There's enough death on our island, Lavanya, please.
Yeah. Sure. Not to be morbid about this, but seriously, I kept telling her, just do it. If you need help, just put up like something on Twitter and there'll be like 50 people to help you to do that. Because before the World Cup, I was trying to look at stuff from Sri Lanka where somebody would tell me what the women's history was. Okay. And it was all male journalists telling me, in our time, there was this woman who used to do this. In our time, the girls used to train here. Where is the literature? Why has no one written about it? Or why is it not easily available for someone to see, right? Even Estelle's work, for that matter, in the world of Google algorithms, you have to know what you're looking for to find your articles. Like, I will find your bylines and things like that, but there'll also be all the other work you're doing, right? A lot of the exclusive literature that you do for some people's behind paywall, to look for that, I need to know that you've written it. Mm-hmm. For the random person who's turning up there, how do they find out that this is what it is? I kept telling her, at least open one website. Whatever you're writing somewhere, put it up there so that people will know, okay, this woman is here. She has written these 50 things. If I need crash course on like the women's game, I will do that. She was literally like my doorway to it. I've been listening to you doing comms when you go for tournaments or when you do things. That's literally the way I learn about what's happening there, what the school system is, what some kid is doing somewhere at the age of 14, or what someone else made available in some other foundation. Even your own countrymen will not know this, Estelle. That is the sad part. These are girls from that island. Same way with India. All of these kids are coming up from our own places. Who knows? Who knows about their struggles or what they're doing unless you put it up like this?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just that, right? Like India did that in Guwahati. They had this thing where they brought all of the former India captains and they felicitated them before that India Sri Lanka game. I came back here. That's the first thing I asked. I'm like, where are the Sri Lankan captains? Why didn't that happen here? This
Didn't you
cricket
ask
here.
Shashikala whether she's coming?
I asked her. She's like, no. I've got my stuff happening in Colombo. I'm sorry, in Melbourne, so I won't be coming down. Then I said, but like it's a World Cup. Are you not coming? I mean, it's okay. I'll watch it on TV. I was just like, damn it, this what an opportunity this would have been to really just bring her down. If not any of the others, right? This is like your literal previous captain. How difficult is it to just fly her down and be like, be here, be part of it, do something with her? it I just left Colombo feeling very heavy with that one bit. That okay, fine, the team didn't do really well. So what? You have characters to celebrate there. You have characters who were fighting. Nilakshika, all her 50s that she scored, right? Like all of the stuff that she managed to do, the rhythm she managed to find. I would have loved to know what her background is in her own words. Figure that out and get that done. Or Kavisha, or Harshita, Anushka, for all her underrated brilliance behind the stumps, not one thing. And I was just like, God, this cannot be how you can't, you've lost an opportunity to sort of pile on what a World Cup brings to you, right? There are random fans that are going to discover Colombo and the things that were happening there. Of course, Colombo got very infamous because of all the washouts, but there were these stories also. Why didn't they come out? Why didn't you have those kind? It was a nice opportunity that sort of went begging. It was very
Yeah.
heartbreaking about the experience there. Yeah.
Lavanya, like what you're telling, what you're talking about. I mean, it's me and Estelle talk about this the whole time, right? We're like, it's so gutted. There's so many great stories
Yeah.
that just in Sri Lankan cricket that just go by the wayside. Sometimes I feel if you're in Sri Lankan cricket, unless you're a kid at a boy at a big Colombo school who's managed to score 1,000 runs in a school season, then it's like to me, that's the most boring story in Sri Lankan cricket. Everything else is infinitely more interesting. Doesn't matter what gender it is. It doesn't like how have you got to this side? What is your pathway to it? What are you finding? I get deeply frustrated. Everyone at Murley End, all kind of four of the kind of core members, we spend a lot of time harassing people at SLC, trying to get people from every part, from the coaching staff, the so-called brain center, from the playing side to come and talk to us. The only time we ever get access to anyone is the day before a game at a press conference, and it's the only people who suffer are the players themselves, right? Like
Exactly.
the fixtures will happen. They'll go out and play games. They'll turn up to another World Cup next year, but you can sell so many more tickets. You could make so much more money if you were like, we've got this, it's not just about Chamari. It's about Kavisha. It's about Harshita. It's about Hasani. It's about Vishmi. It's about go and sell their story and who they are to the rest of the world.
That was the
and
mood
get
of the
buy-in.
Asia Cup also, right? Like Chamari kept speaking so much at the time. All her media interactions would be, this team is more than me. Harshita needs to step up. Vishmi needs to step up. I have like a document somewhere saved which I went and looked for with you because you were translating and sending me stuff, no, from there, from Dambula, and I was
Yeah,
just looking
yeah.
at it. And Chamari would have, I think, in 5 different occasions said the same thing where she said the rest of the team needs to step up. This team needs to know how to win beyond me, or they need to know how to. If I fall early, they need to know how to grind it out, and they did it. There was
Yeah.
proof of concept, and nothing happened from there. So I was like, I just wanted that Asia Cup, to go and see the Asia Cup trophy because I was like, look, we watched all of that. This woman was standing there like one mother, like these mums who stand outside university gates or like school gates when the kids have their board exams, and there's nothing you can do about anything. Your kid's writing, you have no role to play there apart from maybe talking to whichever god you believe in, right? And she's just looking there. She was so exasperated, and she's watching Harshita and Kavisha do what they were doing, and then they did it. They followed through. They beat India in a final, and there's nothing on it anywhere. It's not on your walls. It's not in your literature. It's not in anything you're putting out before a World Cup. Why wouldn't you sort of, especially because the opening fixture also was India Sri Lanka, right? Why wouldn't you tap back on it? I thought for the smallest little achievement, I sit and put it on top of my head and walk around. Why wouldn't you do that as a cricketing board, right? It's beyond me. You have such incredible talent. You have really good ambassadors for the game, even on the men's side, where even like Sangha and all of that, right? At whatever stage, they have spoken about the women's ecosystem here. Chamari has spoken about how much he sort of contributed to her journey and what all he's had to say about it. Sometimes I kind of feel like, are they not seeing the fact that this is just dying out on its own there? They're just doing whatever they're doing and the world is not looking at them. Can they maybe say something? Is it something that the men, like the famous men, right? Not the ones now, but your golden generation of Sri Lankan cricketers, is it something that maybe they can pitch for? But why should it come down to them? There is a board. It's a professional setup now. It should be, at least. It should be their job. It shouldn't take some decorated cricketer to come and tell you how to do your bare minimum stuff for your players, for your own players, not even for some random team coming from somewhere else. So I really wish this had gone so differently. I mean, the monsoon aspect of it is the least of Sri Lanka's problems. Which is what I was trying to tell people in my office. This is not the big story. Everybody knew this was going to happen. The bigger story is you had all of these teams, all of these players who respect the hell out of the players in your home side, and you didn't capitalize on that. It was an opportunity lost, far greater than the Asia Cup win. Honestly, it was an opportunity lost. For all you know, had you galvanized that way behind the team, you could have gotten better performances from your players. Who knows? Now, who knows only? It's all what ifs. We'll be stuck with what ifs only for the rest of our lives.
Estelle, are we allowed to talk about the comment that you said a Sri Lankan legend made about equal pay? Do you want to tell us about that?
So I think Marvin Atapaththu was talking about equal pay on the pre-match show on the official broadcast in Sri Lanka. And he seemed to be, completely behind it and talking about how, if the two genders are doing the same job, then shouldn't they be paid for doing the job that they're doing, right? And it was, to me, quite surprising to hear that coming from, because you either have people who say, look, they have to earn it, or you kind of evade and, and I think a lot of boards and boards try to kind of pass off equal match pay as equal pay, but it doesn't work that way because the women play much fewer fixtures than the men, right? So forget contracts. Even if you pay them the same amount for a match, if the women play 3 matches in a year, the men will play 15, right? So there's a big difference in the number of fixtures they play. So that was quite surprising for me to hear from someone like Marvin Atapaththu, obviously, who comes from a generation where, I mean, it's an older generation, right? But it was refreshing to hear something like that coming from someone who had worked in administration in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's been really fascinating having you on, Lavanya. Thank you for coming on. And I hope you do come back to Sri Lanka, and I hope they've cleaned up the museum. I'm not even asking for them to bring out the Asia Cup or to put any more exhibits. Just clean it up. Just like,
Right. Honestly, yeah, I will be back. I know all of you have individually given me some recommendations to go out and check. And Estelle and I had a lot of conversations about doing like a tour while tracing sports not even sports, just tracing women's cricket in Sri Lanka. Because so many of those stories are along like the coast of the island. And you can, within the individual stories of these players, you can sort of discover the place and stuff. That's something I'm going to do. But I have to say, you guys have been so much fun to listen to. I think I started listening to you guys sometime last year, because Estelle used to keep coming on. So she was my pathway to actually discovering the two of you. It's been so great to see what you do, man. I can't imagine it's easy to sit week after week talking about a sport where people who should care about it don't really care about it. So to just see you guys like passionately go on, and I know there's like football sometimes in it, and you discuss like a lot of stuff. It sometimes becomes like a whole life conversation in a couple of hours, which has been like really enjoyable to follow over the last couple of months at least. So please keep doing what you're doing. If you're ever in Chennai, please come home. I'm very happy to host you, and maybe we can have a conversation there with what you see here and how. I hope you don't encounter any piss-filled places.
Hopefully not. I'd love to. Firstly, thank you for listening. And thanks for your kind words in it. As Estelle knows, because every time I'm given an opportunity, I mention it, I would love to go to Chennai and eat dosa and idli and drink all the samba and the rasam that I could possibly ever eat. I think it would be probably quite bad for my health.
Oh no, it won't. You'll be
Just said,
fine.
I
South
tried.
Asian bodies are built for this. It's
I
okay.
I
Have faith.
tried. Tried to explain to my wife. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that South Indian food is basically all superfoods. I'm like, all those dosa is a superfood. I'm sure about it. It's got to be somehow good for me. I would love that. I'd love to take Murali End on tour. We are excited here at Murali End because we're hoping that Estelle will be over in London in the UK for the Women's World Cup, and I don't know what your plans are.
I'm also this only. See, we will
Yeah.
all hope against hope now. Yeah.
If you're ever in London, do let us know because I'd love to take you out and show you what Tamil food tastes like over here. That'd be great.
Oh, I'm sure. I've studied there. I know how it is.
Oh,
Oh,
fine. And yeah, if you've got all this way through, firstly, up Sri Lanka women's cricket, up all women's cricket, up all women's sport, equal pay for everyone. And if you've got this far and you haven't hit subscribe, there's nothing I can say right now that's going to make you do it. But tell all your friends and family. We've been the Murali End. We've got loads of other things to talk about. We'll do that later in the week. I don't think we need to go into that. What do you think, Estelle? Yeah? We'll play our outro theme. I should also let you know that I think Sri Lanka men are playing Pakistan in a ODI, on the first ODI is the 11th, which is a week on Tuesday, I think. Is that right? I can't they've been changing clocks.
It's next Thursday, I think.
Next Thursday. Well, there you go. Whenever they're playing, we'll be reacting to it soon after the show. See you all then. Bye.
It's a Murali End, you're in the place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we, when mad it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. Go tell a friend.